This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
If you've ever dreamed of quitting your job to take your side hustle full-time, listen up. This is Nicaila Matthews-Okome, host of Side Hustle Pro, a podcast that helps you build and grow from passion project to profitable business. Every week, you'll hear from guests just like you who wanted to start a business on the side.
If you can't run a side hustle, you can't run a business.
They share real tips.
And so I started connecting with all these people on LinkedIn, and I saw Target Supplier Diversity was having office hours.
Real advice.
Procrastination is the easiest form of resistance.
And the actual strategies they use to turn their side hustle into their main hustle.
Getting back in touch with your tangible cash and sitting down and learning to give your money a job, like it changes something.
Check out Side Hustle Pro every week on your favorite podcast app and YouTube.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
Blowing ad budget on metrics that look great till the CFO sees them. That's bull spend. And marketers are calling it out in Dashboard Confessions.
I remember telling my boss, it'll be good for the brand, when leads were slow. Yeah, it wasn't.
Cut the bull spend. LinkedIn lets you target by company, job title, and more. Advertise on LinkedIn. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a $250 credit. Go to linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tech Magic, the podcast where we talk about technology, gaming, innovation, and everything in between. I am your host, Kathy Hackle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Lee Keebler. Lee, how you doing?
Hey, I am great. We're recording on Memorial Day, so this will come out on Wednesday. So it's going to be a little bit of a different show format. This sounds horrible, but I get Memorial Day and Labor Day screwed up every time.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Which one's in May? Which one's in September? Like, yeah.
Okay, so you know how I always get it confused. This is how I fix it. I think about, okay, in the summer you want to wear white. And then like, I know one of them is like, you're not supposed to wear white after one of those days. And it just like, that is my only use case for any type of fashionable knowledge whatsoever.
Well, I don't know if I follow that advice necessarily. I'm like, if you want to wear white, wear white. Like, I've heard that a million times, of course, but I'm like,
Okay, so it must be Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Well,
that's how I figured it out.
You don't wear white after Labor Day.
After Labor Day.
Because it's the fall.
Right. And Labor Day is in September.
You got to wear white during the summer. I mean, that would be like...
that's how I keep it. That's how I keep it
Memorial
straight.
Day, the summer, the pool just opened. I'm wearing tons of white. Yeah. Tons of color. Anyway, what do you have planned? Like, do you have any fun plans? You going to the pool?
No, it's still too cold here to do that.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not actually cold. It's actually, the weather's beautiful. We were expecting to go out maybe and do some camping, but I think we're going to probably maybe do that next weekend. The weather's finally just gotten really wonderful here. We took the opportunity of the nice weather to be able to kind of like open up the home and do the spring cleaning and all of that. So we did a lot of stuff around Portland, had a really interesting interaction with a robot that I'll tell you about. Yeah, that was kind of strange. And yeah, we're just kind of kicking it at home and enjoying the finally nice weather, bike rides, hanging out at the park, picnics, all of that.
Yeah, we're here. It's summer. Like, it literally is summer. Finally, our pool, our neighborhood pool and tennis club has opened. So the kids are like, I want to go to the pool. I want to go to the pool every single day. So that's been fun. Lots of activity. I took the kids to see the Garfield movie yesterday.
How was that?
It was funny. It was cute. I mean,
yeah.
There's been so many versions of Garfield that were like, they weren't great.
Yes. It's one of those franchises that just keeps popping up in the background. And they keep trying to kind of rehash it. Yeah, it is strange that they keep going for that one.
This one was cute. It worked. I walked out and my son was like, okay, this was good. I was like, okay.
Have they seen If yet?
No, we haven't seen If. We haven't been going to the movies too often. This is like the first time in a while because we tend to be movie buffs here. But It's been a while. And now, summer back. We did rent just for fun to tear it apart. We rented Madame Web.
Oh, yes. I have not seen that.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't even finish it, to be honest.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I mean, it's got 11% on Rotten Tomatoes.
For a reason.
Yeah. So we didn't even finish it. I was like, no, we're all going to bed. This is not going to go anywhere.
That's definitely where I fell off the Marvel universe for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't see it either.
That was more like a sport. My son, through my ex-husband, is a big fan of Mystery Science Theater 3000. So I'm not sure if you ever got into that. I mean, yeah. So make fun of really bad movies. So that's kind of what we did. We rented Madame Web and then we just tore it to pieces. So that was a fun activity. By hour and 15 minutes in, we're like, oh, we're done. Okay, we're good.
This is what everyone was complaining about.
Yeah.
We rented a movie as well. It's one that my wife had not seen. I was like, well, it's kind of required reading if you're going to live in the future. And we watched Idiocracy for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah. I'd seen it in college. It's a horribly bad movie with such a timeless
It's so
message.
timely. It's so timely. Terry Crews is the president. Yeah. I rewatched it probably last year because I was like, yeah, I need to rewatch this. This is crazy.
And it's crazy how many new actors and actresses were in this that were not huge. And now they're mega stars. It's got so many recognizable names. And there's so much in this film that would never get made today that I'm just let's not, can we not? Oh, this is too on the nose. Okay, here we are. So yeah, we sat through that and that was, it was what it was.
It was what it was. No comment. Yeah, I rewatched it, like I said, a year and a half ago. And I was like, oh, God. So yeah, things are good. From last week, just give everyone an update. The book launch is going really well. I went to MIT for Future Compute, which is one of their big events, and gave a keynote on spatial computing. It went really well, brought a whole bunch of books. I'm excited. I feel like people are starting to understand that spatial computing isn't just mixed reality. It's beyond that. So that's been good. So tomorrow, I'm off to San Francisco for the World Economic Forum's technology retreat, global technology retreat. They invite usually about 250 people. That's it. To the retreat.
Oh.
So it's kind of very special. I'm going to be on a Future of the Internet panel. Very excited about that. So yeah, just a lot of travel because of the book and things. But yeah, good times.
That's crazy. Yeah, you've been traveling quite a bit. I'm just surprised that you're in your home studio right now.
I try to be here on Mondays. It's been a couple of times. It's been a couple of days because I was in Boston last week recording. But yeah, it slows down a little bit for work travel. And then the family travel during the summer just picks right back up. So yeah, so I won't be in my home studio too often, but we'll see.
Oh, that's fun.
We'll see.
Well, I have to tell you about this interaction.
Tell me. I want to
weekend.
hear about this.
Okay, so I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly because I'd never heard of this store, but evidently it is all over the place. I think it's Muji. I think it's pronounced Muji. Muji. It is at least big enough that when I typed it into iMessage, it corrected it to all caps and was like, this is how you're supposed to write it. It auto-corrected it. So it's evidently a big enough chain brand that I'm just completely out of the loop. And so we have one in Portland. It's in downtown. And it's kind of like an Asian-inspired IKEA. I don't know how else to describe this.
Okay.
So it pulls from different areas of the Asian culture, but it has everything from clothes to office supplies to bedding and dishes and travel. It is got a little bit of everything. It's not IKEA in the sense of you're building furniture. It's just, it has a little bit of everything. It's a really interesting store. Some incredibly interesting fashion. I kind of liked their pajama sets, which were borderline kimonos. I don't know what you would call them.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was a very interesting store. In the back of this store, they have a little cafe set up. And there's nobody manning the cafe. It is manned by a robot. And so it has this industrial robotic arm that you go to a kiosk, and it's got a litany of different choices you can make, from mochas to lattes to matchas and everything in between. So I ordered a matcha. And it wasn't even crazy expensive. I was expecting there to be this technology tax, right? Of this is more like Epcot or something like that. So it's $4 for a matcha latte. And I was like, yeah, cool. Okay, awesome. So I ordered my matcha latte, I put my name in, and then all of a sudden the robot arm comes to life. And I'm telling you, this thing perfected a matcha. I was expecting it to be kind of almost like an espresso machine where it's just like it takes a cup to an area and it just and it's like, there you go, a robot made it. No, that's not what this was. This arm went and it put in the matcha mix. It went and it steamed the milk with a steam wand. Like it had all these different areas. It could make anything just like a person did. And it took about 2 minutes, which is about on average what a human would take to make one of these things, to the point where it actually made latte art in the foam. One arm tilted the cup. The other arm went and made the latte art. It wasn't perfect, but it was a solid attempt for a robot. And your name on the counter, there's a projector, and your name is projected down on the counter where your drink's going to show up. And it's got a little display that's slowly filling in to show you how much time is left for your drink. Once that fills in, it says, Lee, your drink is ready. And it takes and puts the cup down. And you take your cup and you go and you pay. And it was delicious. I was very impressed. I was impressed by all of this. And then I went to pay. So I paid. And then that robot punk asked for a tip.
What? No. No. Things were going so well with the story.
It was going so well.
No. I mean, no. For what? The people that clean who does the tip go to?
That was my question. Does this go to the IT staff? Because I don't know. There's no
someone's
people.
Someone's got to clean where the milk and all that stuff goes. But
and I get that these kiosks come pre-set up for a tip. But if it's preset, if it's 15, 18, 20, right? No. This was definitely 18, 20, 25. And I was like, okay, someone set this up. This is not a mistake.
No. Whoever, the startup they created, no. So obviously you did not give a tip.
Oh,
right?
No. That was the most freeing no tip of a button press I've ever had. It felt so good. That was the best part of the experience, was hitting that no tip button.
Yeah, because I'm if there's a human around or something, I'm oh, well, these people have families.
Yes, exactly.
You're I have so many blessings, but no, I'm not going to tip the robot.
The robot.
No. Okay, no.
It was a good latte, though. It was a good latte. That tip-free latte was delicious.
Did not warrant a tip. So, no. That's crazy. It was going so well. I was ooh. And then no, That's crazy.
I loved it.
18, 20, 25? That's crazy. No, not even 10, 15, 20. No.
No.
The robot did that good a job? I mean, he did a good matcha, or she.
It did a good matcha. The latte art needed improvement, but it was a solid attempt, and it was delicious. I do not think we're going to see these popping up in Starbucks anytime soon. It was a very complicated machine. Shout out to the company that actually made it. They had a display. I think it was called Artly or something like that. It was very interesting. I'd not seen one that complex. I spent a lot of time working in the technology of the food industry, and this was probably the most in a location open to the public that I've seen that was this high tech. It was impressive. It was cool.
I've seen Cafe X or whatever in Austin, and then San Francisco Airport has one. There's a few other places I've seen robot coffee, but if it's making matcha and making it well,
yeah, it was pretty good. If you're in the Portland area, go check out the Muji store, Muji, if I'm mispronouncing it. And it's in the far back corner. You can totally miss it, but it's just back there chilling, making coffees.
And don't tip the robot. Don't get them used to the tips. No. Robots don't need that. So that's crazy. So obviously this is a shorter episode because we're recording on a holiday and we do have an expert interview. So anything on your mind that you want to talk about?
We were talking about this earlier. First big news for me today as an Atari collector was that, and when this is a short drop, but Atari bought Intellivision, I guess. So the first gaming console war is officially over. That's right up there with Nintendo buying Sega, right?
Give me a favorite reference because this was their competitor, arch nemesis, for people that don't have the context.
Yeah, so when the Atari came out, the first home console, it wasn't the first home console, but the first big in everybody's home console. If you didn't have Atari 2600, you had an Intellivision. Those were the two. You may have had a ColecoVision, but it was really Atari versus Intellivision. From a publishing standpoint, they were scrambling for the rights of the same video games. So there's some really interesting old labels when you go into these old video games of Nintendo games, because there was no home console at the time for Nintendo. So the Nintendo games were getting fought for by Intellivision and Atari, and where will Donkey Kong go and things like that. There's even Atari got the publishing rights to the first Mario game for the 2600. So Mario Bros, not the platformer, but like the original arcade. But anyways, it was just a big fight. And I guess in 2024, new Atari has bought all of the rights to Intellivision. So we'll see what that happens. I'm keeping an eye on this iteration of Atari. I was really kind of like not on board during the 2020s when it kind of was this idea of a crypto token that and then someone bought them. It was like this idea of a crypto token out of France that they were playing with and some conversations
I interviewed the CEO of Atari.
Yeah.
I can use a French guy. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that got, I guess, repurposed or repurchased. Now they're really focusing on gaming. They're doing some really great stuff. They've produced at least 3 physical cartridges for the Nintendo Switch. And they just announced a new one. Do you remember Yar's Revenge? Probably not.
Gosh, no.
It's an old school, like early launch title of Atari. They're making a new one, and it is kind of a Metroidvania style platformer with a really strong female protagonist. It's a really good looking game too. So like they're becoming a game publisher. I don't know if how much they're going to do in like the hardware area of it, but they own a lot of IP, like Yar's Revenge for those who remember like old video games, but Asteroids I think is another one that they own. Berserk was one that they own. Tempest was definitely one. And so they're taking these old game brands that have been either forgotten or have been just kind of like set back into the farther regions of our brain closets, and they're making new games out of it and bringing those things back and kind of rehashing those franchises. So it'll be very interesting to see how the next couple of years produce new Atari games. Yeah.
Amazing. I love that. And so I think let's go on break. And then when we come back from the break, we'll talk a little bit more about some news, other news in the space, and then our expert interview. All right. So let's go on break. All right, Lee. So what else is on your mind? I don't know. Like right now, I'm thinking a lot about what I'm hearing about Apple and their WWDC, their developers conference, partnerships with OpenAI, catching up on generative AI. Like I've always said, like, I don't think they're necessarily catching up because they've been doing a lot of AI, maybe just machine learning.
Can I make a confession?
What's your confession here?
I think I'm ditching my iPhone. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't you get a 15 Pro Max though?
No.
No. Okay. So
okay. So here's the story. Okay. This actually is an interesting piece of technology. Are you familiar with a company called Tempo? They make workout equipment.
Oh, equipment. Okay. Yeah.
So they're kind of like up there with like a Peloton, right? You have like Peloton, you have Tempo, you have a bunch of these other ones. Tempo's basically like a weight training version of Peloton.
Oh, do they have the one that goes on the
They've
wall?
Got a huge, they got a huge screen and it's got like body tracking cameras and all of that. Really interesting stuff. My neighbor has one, so I went and I tried out theirs. It's a really incredible piece of technology, and they have shifted from these huge, large, expensive units to here's the weight set, and then you can dock your iPhone because your iPhone has basically the same cameras, if not better, and it does it all there, and then you basically stream it to your screen. Really interesting piece of equipment. We just ordered one, but they've got this issue of, okay, do you want to use the lightning cable or do you want to use the USB-C? And we don't support Android and like all of this other stuff back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So my iPhone is going to get dedicated to that workout equipment because it's like iPhone 13 Pro or something like that. But that led me to, okay, I need to get a new phone. And I've kind of been on that. I went to the Apple store with all the intentions of buying an iPhone 15. And it was just such a slog of an experience. And as I looked and I compared what the 15 is doing to what the new Pixels are doing, I think I'm going back towards the Pixel. I really do.
I don't fault you for it. I just can't leave iOS.
I don't like ecosystems like that. I'm just not an ecosystem person. I'm the same way with Google. Like, I just don't like ecosystems. I don't buy a lot of apps, so I don't have a lot tied up in this. But Apple's incessant 5 gig only of iCloud and nothing works without it, that makes me so unreasonably angry that I was just like, this is true. I was there to buy an iPhone 15 because I didn't have the upgrade to whatever version of iCloud they wanted. They said, okay, to do this transfer, it's going to take 2 hours. And I said, okay, I'll leave my phone with you and I'm going to go get some lunch and come back. And they said, no, you can't leave.
You have to be there the whole time.
You have to be there the whole time. So I'm like, so you're going to have me go sit in a corner of this store for 2 hours without a phone to play with, mind you.
Yeah, mind you, nothing.
Like literally nothing to do. for 2 hours.
You can't even go get lunch. Like,
I can't even go get lunch. They're like, well, no, because technically it's still your phone. And it's like, I get your argument, but people leave their equipment here for repair all the time. So
yeah,
all the time. So the fact that you want me to just go sit in the corner of the Apple store for 2 hours while you transfer. And they were like, yeah, the lightning cable to the USB-C is just not super fast. So we do it over like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. I'm like, are you kidding me? Okay.
Are you kidding?
I need to rethink this. That was kind of the catalyst. So as I started researching the Pixel and seeing all of their integration with Gemini into it, and the Pixel 9's coming right around the corner, and I've kind of been pretty bullish on Gemini.
I don't know, Lee. June's right around the corner.
I know. Oh, no, I know.
June's right around the corner. You are an ChatGPT, like, I want to say super user, a heavy user. I don't know if you're still using it.
Yeah.
I would wait because we don't know what they're going to announce. And if they do have the partnership with OpenAI, I mean, who knows, right? I don't know. Like, do you need to replace your phone in the next month? Because I would literally just wait to see what Apple brings to the market. And then, Pixel or iPhone. But I would.
You just don't want green text message bubbles.
No, I don't.
just admit it. This is all this is about.
And yes, I do look at that. People message me. I'm like, Yeah.
Also, like, just honestly, by price, the Pixel is a great phone for a really good price. They're both good phones. Let me be very clear.
Yeah.
I do have a history of preferring the Android operating system, but, they're just operating systems at the end of the day. That's not the thing that makes or breaks it. So I don't know. I'm right there. I'm on the cliff.
I don't know. My advice, just wait. Wait, there's no rush.
Anyways, that was the other part of my weekend. Yeah, but the Tempo stuff is pretty cool. So we'll see how that goes over when it gets delivered and how the integration works.
I used to have a mirror. You know the mirror that got bought by Lemon? I used to have one of those. Don't have it anymore. And then I did invest in a Catalyst suit last year, which is an electromuscular stimulation suit. Pretty much you're electrocuting yourself while you're working out a little bit.
That sounds miserable.
It's amazing, though. It's like 20 minutes and it's like best workout. I mean, I used to do it when we lived in Spain a long time ago, but at that time you had to have like a trainer come with the suit. Like it wasn't something that everyone could buy. But now, it's not that everyone can buy it. It is expensive, but like I can have one at home and I have it here. So I'll use it, if I have one of those weeks when it's like really hard to get to the gym or something, I'll just put the suit on and it's 20 minutes. We've got all these sensors and stuff. You're wearing this thing and the sensors are wet. And when you're working out, like it's sending these.
You're not selling this. I'm telling
I know to you, but
it sounds horrible.
Okay? But yeah, it's like electrocuting yourself a little bit while you're working out. But it works for me. It's been amazing.
If you're working out and you have like a cardiac incident, can it act as a defibrillator? Like
it's not that strong, okay? It's not that strong, but I like my Catalyst suit. I think it's amazing. Anyway, I'm not selling it to anyone here. You sold Tempo. I'm not selling Catalyst. I'm not making it unattractive.
You said, it's a little wet and it electrocutes you. And I was just like, I'm out.
What part of that do I want to get near? Yeah, no. Oh, my goodness. Well, okay. On that note, I do want to introduce our guest today. Really fantastic interview with Stanley Pierre-Louis. He is the president and CEO of the Entertainment Software Association, ESA. And every year they put out an amazing, amazing report on gaming, on the state of gaming in the United States. It's called the Essential Facts Booklet, Essential Facts Final Report. It has tons of really interesting data about the state of gaming and players and gamers in the United States. So we talked a lot about the findings they had in the report. Very great report. We're going to include a link to the report in the show notes. So definitely check it out. It was interesting. So a big part of the interview that you're going to hear is about the statistics, but also kind of what they're finding with parents gaming with their kids and also Generation Alpha, which is something you and I have talked about quite a bit. So let's go to the interview. All right, everyone. Our guest this week is Stan Pierre-Louis, the president and CEO of the Entertainment Software Association, ESA. Stan, welcome to the pod.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Amazing. So I want to start a little bit by introducing folks to who you are and what you do, and also what ESA does as well, because it's obviously a very interesting association. So let's start there.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So Stan Pierre-Louis, I'm the president and CEO of the Entertainment Software Association. We are the trade association that represents the U.S. video game industry. That means a variety of things. So first and foremost, it means we serve as their voice and advocate on Capitol Hill and in the states as legislation comes down. We also spend a lot of time in the states talking to regulators and other legislators there. We talk to the public, we talk to media, and we really try to represent what is industry. And we try to understand the impact of laws that might have on the industry. But we also need to understand what the industry needs are so that we can help educate policymakers about how to grow this great industry, particularly as it relates to young people and STEM. And so it's a back and forth of us really learning and interpreting, going both directions.
Amazing. And I'm assuming you're a gamer yourself, right?
Sure. It's funny. I did grow up playing games, and then I've gotten to experience it now as a parent since I have a high schooler who's graduating next week. And I've watched him mature from being a young gamer to someone who beats me religiously. So it's kind of been fun seeing that. The other piece of our industry, which is probably important to users, is the Entertainment Software Rating Board, the ESRB. That is the organization that provides information to consumers, parents, caregivers about the age appropriateness of games, what's in the game, as well as interconnectivity that the games may have. And so most people know this as E plus, teen, mature, those kinds of ratings. And then beneath that, there are a host of additional guidance for parents, as well as resources and tools for how to manage time, money spent, and the like while playing video games on consoles and other devices.
Money spent? Yeah, I always joke because I've got 3 young kids. They're all Generation Alpha, and we're going to talk about that. I feel like I work for Roblox or for Fortnite. Like, I feel like all my money goes to them, right? Oh my gosh. Every time it's like, I need more Robux, Mom. I need more V-Bucks. So it's really interesting. You mentioned that. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on the pod was to talk about the 2024 Essential Facts Report that the ESA puts out. Great information here on the state of the video game industry in the United States, the impact as well of the industry. So maybe give folks a brief overview of the report, and then we'll definitely dig into what I found some of the most interesting findings in the report.
So every year, the ESA, Entertainment Software Association, conducts a survey to understand U.S. demographics around who's playing games, player attitudes, behaviors, and also perceptions of the industry. And it's our way of trying to track where we are as an industry and where our growth might be, but also how consumers feel about where they are in games. We've been doing this since 1999, and so later I can share some of the things that have developed since 1999 and today. But in our most recent survey, we found that games are very representative of the U.S. population, including all those demographics, whether it's African American, Hispanic players. And so it's 190 million people who play games. Over 60% of people in America play games. And what's always surprising to people is who's playing. And so 46% of people who play games are women.
I love that statistic. I love that. As a female gamer, when I read that in the report, I was like, yes.
It's funny when you speak to people about how they're playing and what words you use is important. Player versus gamer. People conjure up different perceptions in their minds. But in fact, everyone's playing, and when you talk about age, when we first did this study in 1999, of people 50 and older, 9% said they played. Today, 29% say they play. And when you start to look at those numbers, it's actually more people kind of 45 and over playing than people under 18, because people have played over time. And so that, when you look at the age of people who play and the gender statistics we have, it really speaks to the scope. But I always say to people, if you're in a waiting room or if you're commuting to work and you see someone getting in a quick game on their mobile device, they're playing games. And they tend to do that at least once a week. And then that opens the conversation to, when you say playing games, you mean playing any game on any device. And then it humanizes the experience for how they live and what they see in their households.
Yeah, and I think that's a trend that we're seeing throughout. Like, for example, Wordle. Wordle's a game. Like, you're playing a game. That's why I love seeing things that are happening across the industry, like New York Times Gaming, the strong push. I mean, I even joke and I said New York Times is now a gaming company. Rolling Stone just launched Rolling Stone Gaming to cover the gaming industry. We're starting to see gaming get the respect and the place it deserves as it being such a massive industry.
I don't know if you've seen this, but LinkedIn now even has games that they're building into LinkedIn to keep people active and engaged.
Well, I think they understand where kind of the generation demographic where things are going and how playing and gaming are an essential part of who we are as we, I think as millennials become older, as Gen Z goes older, as like Gen Alpha continues to grow, gaming's at the center of what we do. One of the things I loved about the report is that it talked a lot about the role of parents when it comes to gaming. So I have 3 kids, all Generation Alpha, big gaming family. We game together. I've always been a big proponent of like, if you don't understand what your kids are doing, like sit down, play with them in Roblox, try to understand what they're doing. For us has been a really great way of bonding. I would love to talk a little bit more about some of the findings that you have in the report around that.
Sure. So first, with respect to playing together, that is such an important point to make. I mentioned earlier the Entertainment Software Rating Board provides rating information and the like. They also have tools and resources around this, including a family discussion guide. And one of the key things is try playing the games with your kids. It'll give you some bonding time, but it also gives you a window into what these games are like and how to navigate the systems. And it's tremendously important. So if you go to esrb.org, and I can give you all the sites later, there's a lot of information on that. So we found that 72% of parents play games. And of those, 83% play with their kids. And they do it to understand what's going on in the game, but they really find that it's really great bonding time. It's fun, and you're connecting with your young loved ones while you're doing it. And so that also speaks to how people continue to play as they get older. You mentioned before about millennials and the like. When we first did this study in 1999, the average age was 29 of someone who played games, which is older than most people think it is because of the perception they have. Today, it's 36. So each year it's crept up because people who played, maybe they became a lapsed player at some point in your career mode and you're doing other things, they come back to games. And we certainly saw this during COVID where people played and parents saw their kids connecting with friends, family, and loved ones through games. And so a lot of times when kids are playing games, they're usually chatting with someone. And so it's a digital playground of sorts. And so a lot of people have to think of screen time on a game as very different than simply sitting at a screen because you're actually interactive with the game and you're actually talking to someone for the most part. So games really provide a lot of great outlets for connection and playing and for parents to see what their kids are doing and then to have some fun along the way.
No, I definitely agree. Like, I feel like with my son, we never really played Fortnite. Like, I wasn't letting him play Fortnite until Fortnite Lego came. And then I felt really comfortable, like, okay, let's go in, let's do this together. So I definitely see that evolution, especially as a parent. And I'm not surprised about the 36-year-old age because those are the millennials, right? Like people like me that grew up playing, Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, which are very gory, and then eventually would go back to playing in some shape or form. So that definitely makes sense. The report also talks about Generation Alpha. And we, in this podcast, have talked a lot about Generation Alpha. I actually commissioned Harvard to do a report on Generation Alpha and kind of where they're spending their money and their time. So we'd love to hear more about some of the findings around Generation Alpha, how they view gaming, where they're spending their time, anything you can share with us.
Sure. Generation Alpha is generally ages 5 to 10 right now. There might be a year more than that before you get to Gen Z, but they are among the highest, if not the highest percentage of video game players today. That may speak to how parents engage with their kids and how they pass time, but they are very, very engaged at 79%. Now, more than half of American adults play games, 56%. That's 18 and older. But you're seeing that next generation really love games. And that may speak to a lot of, for instance, kids' games on mobile or on iPads. It's not uncommon at a restaurant for a parent to use iPads from what I've seen. But what's interesting is I'm talking about mobile here, but they're also among the highest, if not the highest users of consoles and PCs for games. So if you look at Gen Alpha and Gen Z, 58% of them use consoles and 54% use PCs, which is the highest percentage. So they're very, very engaged and they're using all the platforms. And so as people talk about the console wars or what devices are going to be next, there's this new audience that really enjoys console play. And it's because it's a different kind of play, I think. Very robust experience. You have better photorealistic experiences. I think video game makers want to make sure they can reach fans and audiences where they are. So, for instance, on a Fortnite, you can play it on mobile, you can play it on the Xbox, you can play it on PlayStation, you can play it on PC. So a lot of companies are looking for ways to meet audiences where they are. But the experience on a console or a PC is very different than mobile, and it's meant to be. There's more horsepower in the game, and where, the graphic cards and the like are just high end. So it's a very different, very rich experience.
That's really interesting because at home, like when we play together, we're playing on console. When my son's playing with his friends, he's on PC. And if he's playing alone upstairs, like he's on his mobile. So like we definitely go between all the different types of versions. I found a statistic really interesting. I think it was like 12% of games are played in virtual reality or something along those lines. There's a 12% there in VR. Do you think that number might continue to increase as we're starting to see more immersive gaming formats? Whether it's MetaQuest or whether it's an Apple Vision Pro. What are your thoughts around more immersive gaming formats?
I think it's an exciting opportunity for people to play different games or games in different ways. It's still a growing market. There's a lot of room to grow in the VR and AR space in particular. And so you're seeing not only Oculus, but now you're seeing Apple, right, coming out and saying they want to be a part of this experience for users. I think also those experiences allow for other types of, it's like as a video game industry, we tend to be drivers of new technologies and drivers of innovative entertainment. There have been experiments, for example, by the NBA for providing people with a VR headset to see what it's like to sit courtside at a game. So I think there's a lot of different experimentation. The most robust is probably in the video game space, but I think there's a lot of room. I think the developers of games want to ensure that there's a really big audience to transition some of the large scale games they make onto VR, because every time you make a game and you make it for a new platform, it requires quite a bit of work. So the gameplay is the same, but to get it on an Xbox or a PlayStation or a PC just requires significant engineering know-how. And so doing that for the VR experience is also very intensive in terms of engineering. But I think it continues to be a growth opportunity, which is why you see sustained investment by companies producing VR headsets.
Yeah, and I think as we're going to see more and more new hardware types coming, new glasses, all these sorts of things, gaming is at the forefront of that. You're already seeing that with the Vision Pro that just released the Mayo. I would like an actually really good game to play in the Vision Pro. So I think gaming is going to be at the forefront of these new immersive content types for sure. I wanted to talk a little bit about the state of the American gaming industry as far as consumer spend goes and everything. I mean, it's such a massive industry. Most of the people that listen to the podcast know this, right? Gaming is estimated to be bigger than film and movies and music combined. It's a massive industry across the globe. What is the state of it in the United States?
It's been on a growth trajectory since the beginning. And if you look back just a few years, if I go back to 1999, or I think the numbers from 1998 is this was a $5.5 billion industry. Now, fast forward to the numbers we announced for 23, 57.2. So 10-fold increase. And as you track that each year, it's generally been a significant bump each year. It's been a trend of, 10, 12, 13% growth. And then there was COVID. And we saw an enormous spike during COVID because people were home. We were trying to socially distance, and we were trying to find a way to not stay isolated. And games provided this amazing outlet. And it meant that you had a significant increase in engagement, to some extent sales as well. So we saw the numbers go past 60 billion during COVID. But all of the companies in their earnings calls and in their guidance to investors said, we're going to stabilize after COVID, and we want to get past COVID. So the goal isn't to increase sales and just stay there because of COVID. It's to do what we can to help this situation and continue to produce amazing games that connect people. But there was always this thought that it would stabilize, which is what we're seeing now. So if you trend it up, there was just a huge spike in 20 and 21. And as you get to 22, 23, it stabilized. But if you compare pre-COVID to post-COVID, we were at $43 billion before COVID, maybe inching up to 45, and now we're at 57.2. So it's still a growth trajectory. And we're an industry that still employs a high number of people. Over 105,000 people are directly employed, but there's another 158,000 people who are game adjacent, meaning there's something about game development that they help in, whether it's hardware or software. So we end up being a significant network multiplier when it comes to economic benefit. And as a result, we have $101 billion of economic impact in the United States, and a very, very healthy compensation for family living. It's about $168,000 on average, which is more than double the national average. So we're an industry that makes great games, but it also rewards the people who are making those games so that they can have a good lifestyle, but continue to make games.
Yeah, and I love seeing also like how the younger generation is embracing game making and game development. I always say this, my son's a Roblox developer. There's been months where he's made $100 on some of his games. Like when I was 12, I was not making $100 a month. Right. So I love seeing how this younger generation, whether they started in Minecraft or whatever, like they're also world builders, right? It's not just passive gaming, but there's this element of world building, which in essence is going to eventually translate into world making and world building. So what are your thoughts around that?
Well, one of the things people don't appreciate about video game play, particularly for kids, it has two important benefits aside from having fun and connecting with others. One is that it inspires you to want to learn more. And there's actually studies that show that learning to play games and playing games is learning how to learn. And it really teaches you that. It actually reduces your stress as well, but learning how to learn. And you find that people will play, particularly kids, not only are interested in what's on the screen, but how it gets made. There was a study out of England, I think University of Surrey, several years back, that said girls who play video games are 3 times as likely to get a STEM degree in college than those who didn't. And if you look at the number of young people who played games, many of our leading innovators played games as kids. And that was exciting in terms of inspiring their want for learning. So that's the first. The second is there's an emotional toolkit that you actually get benefits from in playing games as a kid. You're playing with others, so you're learning collaboration. You're playing as a different character, so you're learning empathy. And you're having to grind to get to each level, so you're actually learning perseverance and diligence. And so there are these soft skills that you might not otherwise get in a passive environment that games are engaging you to build.
I love that. And there was a finding there in the report that really jumped at me. It was like 68% of American gamers played to pass the time or relax. And I thought that was really interesting because I think the misconception is that people are just, couch potatoes playing or anything. Like they're doing it to relax. It's part of their routine on how they try to wind down, et cetera. And that's very much a kind of an example here in my house. What are your thoughts around that, around why are people playing games?
When you talk to adults in particular, 79% will say it brings them joy. 77% will say it gives them mental stimulation. And 76% will say for mental relaxation. And so at a time when we're concerned as a society about mental well-being and mental health, games end up having a very positive impact on society. And so I think the numbers that we have in the report and the things that we're all seeing anecdotally speak to the fact that games are really engaging and fun, but they also inspire these other benefits. For older Americans, they actually believe that it helps with mental acuity. And there have been some studies that show that it slows down dementia. You're seeing people who are advanced in age and maturing, continuing to play and finding that it's a lot of fun. It keeps them occupied. And more, it connects them with people as you get less mobile. It helps you with your friends, maybe who are not as mobile, and it helps you intergenerationally with grandparents sometimes playing with their kids and grandkids. So a lot of benefits.
I love that. Anything else you might want to add about the report?
It's fun that this is our 30th year as a trade association. We were founded in 1994, and we were really constituted to help industry explain itself to regulators, to help found the ratings information that really have been benefiting consumers, and to really shine a light on the great aspects that games bring to society, culture, and the economy. I mentioned before, in 1999, 9% of people 50 and older played. Today, 29%. Back then, in 1999, about 18% of people said they played online. Today, it's almost 90%. In our survey from 2012, 33% of people said they played mobile. And today it's more than 78%. So what we've seen is a trajectory of growth and an ability of this industry to morph into the next platform to make sure they're meeting consumers where they are and to keeping fans engaged while providing benefits. So it's an exciting time for us celebrating our 30th anniversary, an exciting time to be in games just because of amazing games and platforms that are out there today. And then just thinking about what's coming down the pike is really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, growth, continued excitement. I think more mass market appeal, as we've seen with The Last of Us and Five Nights at Freddy's and everything that's happening in the gaming IP space. Super, super interesting. So if folks want to get the report or learn more about what you're doing at ESA, where can they go?
Sure. If they come to our website, they can learn about what we do and this report. We're at theesa.com. That's THEESA.com. And if they want to learn more about the ratings information, age appropriateness, and the tools and family resources that we talked about earlier, esrb.org for the Entertainment Software Rating Board.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the pod, Stan.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity.
All right. So that was Stanley Pierre-Louis from the ESA. And yeah, I mean, they're finding really interesting things about how Generation Alpha is embracing gaming very differently, how you're starting to get, like you mentioned, more women and girls in the gaming space, and the numbers are starting to even out. And then financially, how well the gaming industry is doing from the perspective of money coming in, let's say. Not so much, obviously, people getting laid off and everything, which we've discussed quite a bit. But I feel like gaming's starting to finally get the recognition it deserves. And the ESA has been around for a long time. So.
And I think it's going to continue to happen. Gaming is not necessarily always profitable. I want to put that out there. But I see it as one of those last areas where piracy hasn't taken a huge chunk out of it, especially when you have like dedicated consoles, PlayStation 5, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, and things like that. So if you can make a really good game on budget, and this is why indie gaming does do well if you make a really good game, you can get ahead of a lot of this, and people are willing to pay for those games. So I do see that as a significant area for growth in the next, 10, 20 years as well, and how the younger generations are interacting with these games. Like, it's almost as if it's not a game, right? Mm-hmm. It's just a part of societal entertainment. We have this idea of gaming put in there,
culture.
But it's culture, right?
Really?
Like, I look at how big things like Roblox have grown, and granted, Roblox technically is gaming because people make games on it, but it isn't, right? Like, it's social culture that has the ability to build whatever it is you want in there. VR Chat's a really good example of, like, you can technically build a game in there. The games aren't even that incredible when you build it in there, but it is about the societal culture. Whereas, like, Fortnite obviously is a game. And so we're blurring those lines as we're building it, and that the generation is definitely blurring those lines. I don't know anyone who's like, I'm a gamer, right? That was what millennial Gen Z we definitely went for, but as it becomes such a part of the norm, I think we're going to kind of get to a point where we're retiring some of this nomenclature.
That's interesting because I use the word gamer for myself, but that's true. My kids don't. Like, I'll buy in pajamas and say gamer or whatever, but they just game, like just play. Like, they don't say I'm a gamer. They don't use that. So I think that that's really interesting as an older millennial.
Well, you would go and you'd sit down and you'd play a game, right? Yeah. But if that quote unquote game is always in your pocket and always active and you've got friends in there.
It's just something you do. It's part of your...
It's just something you do.
Because that's literally, I mean, my son will come home and then get on the PC or on console and play with his friends. And, and actually it was funny because he was playing with some of his friends. He had just had a hangout with one of his buddies. They had done laser tag. He came home and then they started playing again. And then my mom's like, didn't he just hang out with him? And I was like, Mom, it's like in the olden days when I would go hang out with my friends at their house and I would come home and then get on the phone with them. And you'd be like, what do you still have to talk about? It's the same thing, but it's in the video game. And then my mom was like, oh, okay. The analogy made sense to her.
Yeah. It doesn't stop, right? I mean, I was definitely in the generation of like, you'd go hang out with your friends, you'd come home and you'd talk with them on AOL Instant Messenger for hours.
Which you just reminded me, but you sent me in the Slack channel. Rest in peace, ICQ.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So for those who don't know, if we're going to talk about old tech, when we were talking about like Atari buying and television, we might as well throw this in there as well. ICQ Messenger, for those who maybe used it back in the day, I highly doubt you were still using it today, is finally shutting down. They had a 28-year run, but on June 26th, ICQ Messenger, which was basically an alternative competitor to AOL Instant Messenger, is finally closing down and shutting down the application.
I had no idea they were still around, Lee, which I was like, oh, rest in peace, ICQ. But I was like, how is this even still around? Who uses this?
Yeah. Well, I think like ICR, which was basically a internet relay chat is what that stood for. It was kind of the underlying base for ICQ, and ICQ basically put it into a user interface like AOL Instant Messenger was, so people could talk to each other, and then it became its own thing. ICR, I don't think that'll ever shut down. People still use that. Now, that's mostly like really deep in the basement developers who have been working on like Linux kernels, and it's active, it's there, but that is the definition of a subculture. ICQ was right up there with AOL and Yahoo Messenger for a long time. And now I think they're all defunct and have finally gave up the ghost for WhatsApp and iMessage and Discord.
You know what? Someone asked me the other day to use Skype.
Oh.
I was like,
ugh.
What? I was like, excuse me? I was like, what? It was very confusing to me because I was like, I had not heard about it. I mean, I used to use it a lot of us used it quite often, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, is that even still around? Like, it was one of those things where I was like, huh.
And that leads to something that, going back to like the Pixel phone conversation.
Don't do it, Lee.
I know. I hear you. I'm not necessarily going to listen to you, but I hear you.
That's why we get along so well. Okay.
One of the critiques on the new Pixel is like they're rolling out Gemini for the Pixel phones, their AI. So the Gemini assistant, though, is not the same as the Pixel assistant, which is still baked into the search bar of the phone. So like there's two kind of AI-y assistants.
Are they competing with each other on the phone?
It kind of feels that way. Like eventually you think Gemini is going to like take over from where it is, but we're in this weird limbo transition. And it is very much like Skype for Microsoft, because most people, I think, forget that Microsoft bought Skype like a decade or more ago. They've owned Skype forever. And then they rolled out Teams. Now, Skype still exists. Why? I don't know.
Someone's using it somewhere. I don't know.
Somewhere there must be some legacy enterprise thing that they can't shut down. I have no idea. But the fact that Microsoft owns Skype and then they're so heavily vested into Teams, and now they've got to maintain two robust platforms that basically do the same thing. It's always very strange when you see stuff like this. Yeah. And we may even see that with Apple, is if they roll out some type of like AI integration with ChatGPT, but it's not ready for Siri. We could end up with like a Siri and a different AI, and they just are both living on your devices. Nobody knows. This sounds crazy, but it happens so often.
Well, we could definitely see that happening. Anyway, all right, everyone, that's the show for today. Lee, thanks for joining me.
Happy Memorial Day.
Happy Memorial Day. Amazing. So thanks, everyone, for listening to Tech Magic. Come for the tech, stay for the magic. We'll be here next week. And please send us your messages and your comments, like and subscribe. And we are happy to bring you more news next week. Bye.
Blowing ad budget on metrics that look great till the CFO sees them. That's bull spend. And marketers are calling it out in Dashboard Confessions.
I remember telling my boss, it'll be good for the brand, when leads were slow. Yeah, it wasn't.
Cut the bull spend. LinkedIn lets you target by company, job title, and more. Advertise on LinkedIn. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a $250 credit. Go to linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.